Which relationship do you feel like you need to heal the most with? Mom or dad?
Definitely with my mum.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not even talking to my mum right now.
Really? When's the last time you talked to her?
Maybe 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel?
Like I'm heading towards regret.
Because if that turns into 4 months, turns into a year, 2 years.
Was it you that said to me about how many times you get to see your parents a year? And that really stayed with me. Can you repeat what you said to me for context?
Yeah, Jesse Itzler, who's a buddy of mine, who unfortunately just lost his father. He told me this a couple years ago. He said, and Jesse's in his 50s. So he said, my parents are in their 70s or 80s at the time, right? And he said, once you're older and you move away from home and you've got kids and you've got family, he's like, you go back to your home to see your parents 2, 3, 4 times a year, maybe most people twice. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And he goes, well, if your parents are in their 70s or their 80s, you don't have 10 or 20 more years with them, hopefully. You have 2 times a year. You maybe have 10, 20, 30 more times you're going to see them, if that's been your cadence for the last 5 years, because life happens. Maybe you talk to them, but you don't see them in person every day, every month. You see them a few times a year. He said, you only get 20 moments with your parents.
Left.
Maybe if they live a super long, healthy life, maybe you get 30 moments left. Have you said everything you want to say? Have you connected with them the way you want to connect? Have you addressed things? Have you shown up fully and loved them? Or are things unsaid?
I have not. And my dad has outlived his younger siblings. My dad has outlived his younger siblings, and I see my dad once a year.
And he lives in London?
And he lives in the UK. He lives about 4 hours from London, in the countryside, where I grew up.
Where's your mom live? Same place?
Same place. So I'm in my overdraft, as we call it. So I'm in the red.
You're in the negative.
Yeah.
It could be any year. Hopefully he's got decades left. You never know.
I'm pretending it's not going to happen. And I know I am. And I ignore the thought. If the thought comes into my mind, I'll make myself busy doing something.
Of course, yeah.
I know I'm going to regret that. I've never lost anyone. So
tell you what, man, it's the first time. My dad passed 3 months ago now, or 2 months ago now. And a friend of mine, Jason Wilson, who's an older gentleman, really inspiring guy. He told me 2 years ago, in 2019, he said, how's your relationship with your father? Because he knew that for 15 years at that time, he had an accident, a brain trauma, where we really didn't have the same relationship because he wasn't mentally and emotionally available in that way. So it was a different personality type. He was physically here, but it was almost like he was mentally and emotionally not here. And so when I'd see him, it was the same conversation every time. He didn't have the memory, all that stuff. It was just challenging to see him, for me, right? And he said, even if you're not having the best experience with him, and even if he doesn't say he likes having you around, because after 2 hours, he'd be like, I'm tired, I want you to leave. He said, even if that's happening, he still really cares that you showed up. He may not show it, he may not communicate it, you may not think it's true, but it's true. He's always going to care. And if you don't know how many years he has left, you owe it to yourself to do the best you can. And so when he told me that in 2019, I said, okay, you know what? Because I usually went back once a year for years. I'd see my dad once a year. Because I'm in LA, he's in Ohio, I'd go back. I started hosting an event in Ohio, an annual conference called Summit of Greatness, for the reason to be back for 1 week in Columbus, Ohio, to be able to go see him multiple times and give me more of an excuse. He was like, you need to go more. I was like, but I've always got so much work here in LA, and it's like, it's a big, it's a flight over there, and it's a whole issue, like seeing him, it's a big deal, whatever. And he said, trust me, you don't know when, maybe he lasts 20 more years, but you have no idea. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna do this 4 times next year. I made the commitment. I'm gonna go for multiple days so I can see him multiple times each day. And then boom, the pandemic happened. And I went 3 times. I'd said I wanted to go 4, I went 3. And I felt really good about it though, because I extended my trips and I stayed longer and I saw him lots of days. And I videotaped it all and I asked him every question I wanted to ask him. I interviewed him. I have all these videos of me interviewing him on a podcast. So I was like, I want to ask him everything. I want to tell him how I feel. And I did that. And then in 2021, I went to see him twice. I did the same thing. I kept asking him all the questions I needed to ask, said everything I needed to say, how much I appreciated him. And then in February 2022, this year, he passed away. And I didn't think it was going to happen. And I'm so glad for the last 2 years, I went to go see him, said what I needed to say, asked him questions, videotaped it, took photos, just had those moments. Because now I can at least say, you know what? I did the best I could. Maybe I could have gone and seen him more in these last 2 years, but I went more than I've ever been. I felt spiritually more connected to him than ever in the last 2 years. I felt like our relationship shifted after 15 years of struggle. And
is there anything left?
I think I told him everything. I told him how much I loved him, how much I appreciate him. I told him I forgive him for stuff that I dealt with. But also, he was a great dad, but had his challenges. So it's like I loved him for the things I loved. I forgave him for the things that felt like he struggled with. But again, certain things I said, it's like he couldn't fully understand it because mentally he had the brain trauma. But I was like, I said it for me at least, you know, and hopefully his spirit captured it and he understood it. But I didn't hold anything back. I don't think I held anything back. I can't think of anything at least. Maybe there's something, but it's not like, beautiful. Oh, I really wish I would have told him this. Yeah. I told him everything.
I've got marginally better, but not fast enough. Time is not on my side.
It would be, it's something you should schedule in the next few months to go see both of them, in my opinion.
And people wonder. What
would you say to your dad if you only had 2 hours left with him? One time to see him.
It would be appreciation that I don't feel like I've ever given him. But I've sent, so on Father's Days every year, when I send something, I always say exactly what I want to say to him. Just because I started doing this maybe 2 years ago, I say the things and I say it in our little family group chat on Father's Day that I'm going to wish I said to him, which is just appreciation, like giving him the credit for the man that I became and more broadly for that unconditional love piece that I told you about. Like watching someone just love a family regardless of the chaos they were surrounded by is something that will create a generational cycle where I will be that person in my home because of you. And it's difficult with my mum because we struggle to have conversations. People will never, if I told you the things that my mum has said to me, you wouldn't believe it.
Just nasty stuff.
You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe that someone could say that to their child. And so people say to me, go meet them, But I go, but what if someone was saying this to you? And my mum she loves me deeply. She loves me so, so deeply. But
she doesn't have the tools to communicate.
She will say things you wouldn't believe a mother could say to a child. And so
if you only had an hour with her and she couldn't say anything, but you could say everything, what were the things you'd want to say? And this was the last hour you would have with her.
It would be all about appreciation. It would be about the lessons you taught me, the fact you taught me that, for all the failings in entrepreneurship, she taught me it was a thing. And even though it never succeeded for her, and it still to this day hasn't, she taught me it was a route, and that opened my eyes. And in fact, all the the things people would consider in the parenting Bible to be deficiencies or flaws are all of my blessings. Not coming home to your kids. Well, then what happens then? Well, your kid's going to have to figure out how to eat today. So he's going to go into the house, pick something off the shelf in the house at home, and he's going to go sell it. And that's what I was doing. And also, if he's incredibly insecure because you don't have Christmases and birthday celebrations, you don't have presents or lunch money or any of those things, you're going to make him want, and you're going to give him a drive for things. And that absence you created as my parents showed me that anything I am to have in my life is a direct consequence of something I do. It doesn't appear. So that's why I was an entrepreneur at 16, starting businesses. At 18, I was running all the school trips in my school. I'd done the vending machine deals for my school so that they had all the vending machines. I was super entrepreneurial because I had learned that everything in my life is going to be a direct consequence of Stephen.
Wow.
And that stayed with me. And it was a huge advantage. And everyone can relate to this in their own way. The people, the guests that I sit with, whether it's you or it's an Olympic gold medalist or a billionaire CEO, it's all it tends to be some kind of anomalous trauma that has made them an anomaly in their lives.
Driven.
Yeah, it's like getting a piece of Play-Doh and poking it this side, and you go, oh my God, it's been poked this side, but then you turn it, and you look at the protrusion the other side, and you go, oh, that's their greatness. And it's the same thing. It's the protrusion on the right that's created the greatness on the left. And that's the case for me. But with that protrusion, you have to address the dark side.
Yes.
You have to know what it is and address it, because the thing that will make you obsessed in business will make you never see your family.
Do you think if you healed the major wounds of your life that you would be as driven and successful as well? Do you think that's possible for you to continue to be driven, successful, and impactful? Or would you be less impactful? Or if you were healed or on a healing journey, would you be even greater?
It's a great question, one I've pondered much. I used to think that healing from the things that had made me driven would inhibit my ambition. I used to think that if I got to the point where I believed deep within my being and my inner child that I was enough, that I was as good as the white friends and the houses and all the things I didn't have when I was that kid in that neighborhood looking around. If I got to the point where I realized I was enough, I thought it would inhibit my sense of ambition and drive. What I actually learned was that was never actually ambition. The Lamborghini wasn't ambition, it was insecurity. I didn't want a Lamborghini. Society told me I would be enough if I got a Lamborghini. So when I realized I was enough for myself, your ambitions become real ambitions. Then you go, what does Steve actually want to do if he doesn't care about the external validation or the approval of others? What are the things he would be doing if he wasn't striving for a Lamborghini or for followers or for some kind of applause? And he had the void of financial resources filled in his life. Well, he would be making content about life and psychology every day. He would be spending time in Bali, creating a home there with a family. He would be doing all these other things. So healing actually creates the foundation for real ambition. Before then, you think it's ambition, but it's actually a pursuit of validation. It's trying to quench an insecurity or to win your parents' approval. So that was a really liberating thing for me. And now that I'm getting closer and closer to realizing that I am enough, which I think I'm pretty close now, I'm as ambitious as ever before, but I'm really asking myself whenever I pursue something, why? And I end up pursuing things and getting things that are actually intrinsically meaningful and rewarding, as opposed to things that I attained. And upon getting them, they would seem to dissipate in my hands. And it was a mirage, it was an illusion. Someone had told me a lie, and I think I know who. It was that 4, 6, 8-year-old me that told me these things would make you fulfilled and happy and content. But it was a lie I told myself because I didn't know better. And now I know better. So the things I attain and reach for and strive are things that are actually Steve's, that those are my things. You can't quantify dreams. Greatness can be being the best elementary school teacher. But if you are present or peaceful in the pursuit of that dream, for me, that is the closest definition I've heard to your personal greatness. And greatness has to be a personal thing.
Yeah.
If it becomes relative, then it's not your greatness anymore. It's externally measured greatness.